Welcome, everyone. I thought it was important to start with, I had another track planned. It was a bit more upbeat, just in terms of a bit of a celebration moment that this is, the sharing of this impact report. And midday in a working day, I thought something relaxing was also, a bit of a celebration, knowing that I'm sure you're all incredibly busy people. So before I dive in, I just wanted to kick off with a bit of an acknowledgement. I'm dialing in today from Gumbaynggirr country in Nambucca Heads. I would also like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, the lands where we worked in Leeton and Junee as part of the pilot program for IRCF. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and anyone here with us today, and thank them for their custodianship and millennia of care for this place so that we can go on to enjoy it. So today we also, I think I can see some new names. So I'm potentially thinking that means some new faces and people that are new to IRCF and are also here to learn about the program. So I thought I'd kick off with a video that's been created that profiles the program. So let's just start with that. Give me a second while I organise my sharing. Everybody here?
What I love about the Gumbaynggirr country is the landscape, growing the native plants and revegetating them into their natural habitats, and having the chance to sit with elders and the stories that I get told when working in Wujaygamma.
Before I joined up with Shore Shack, I struggled just talking to one person, and now I can stand here and talk technically to a bunch of people. So it's helped me with my social skills, work skills, and it's been created to be like a family space for everybody. It feels comfortable and happy within the workplace.
The Investing in Rural Community Futures program was designed in response to a theory of change, and the hypothesis that we were testing is that if you invest in grassroots, community-led not-for-profits, supporting them in their organisational capacity and how they function, that they'll be able to advocate for themselves more effectively, be that within their communities and even beyond their communities, to be able to shift the systems that they're functioning in.
Junie's very, very good at standing up for one another, particularly when things get tough. So the purpose of the Junie Community Centre is to try and get the best possible outcome for our members of community, our aged, people living with disability and other vulnerable members.
Jumpstart, we have clients ringing up for assistance when they're in crisis, and the purpose of our organisation is to assist them with financial aid or practical assistance to be able to help jumpstart them out of their initial hurdle and get them back to a space of wellbeing.
IRCF is a wraparound support for not-for-profits in rural regional communities. That means, yes, funding, but also a locally based community facilitator. It means a community roadmap where the community comes together to articulate their needs and their goals together, as well as 6-monthly evaluation, giving them the opportunity to reflect.
To have someone come in and see you from a completely different aspect and say, I've got faith in you, I believe that with the right process we can get you up and get you running, and the people now have so much more confidence that when someone's got faith in you, you'll do anything.
What the relationship with FRRR has done is probably led to us getting about $1 to $2 million in funding. It's meant increased access for young people to the program. It's meant that employers are finding skilled young people, and I think the overall well-being, in response from police and schools, is that there's less negative behaviours in our community, which is a wonderful outcome when we're focusing on the individual and the wraparound support that they need.
One of the things that was quite noted in this program is seeing people put their hand up and groups actually working together rather than competing. And also the advocacy side of things. People are definitely advocating a lot better than what they used to. So we still have a bank, and the bank is actually opening longer hours, which is wonderful.
In terms of council involvement in IRCF programs, it's been a pleasure to work with the one in Leeton. I think that the opportunity has given communities the ability to really consolidate their purpose and their vision. They've got stronger direction. They know where to go to find resources and help and assistance, and they know how to collaborate more as a result.
I think the message for communities considering the IRCF program is do it. It is empowering. It's not always easy. There's ups and downs, but at the end of the day, you are investing in community for vibrancy and longevity, and it is absolutely worth it.
Okay, so the purpose of today's webinar was to really to launch this IRCF Impact Report for community, and I think mainly the purpose in that was that it was a useful document. It's not a document that's going to sit on a shelf and get dusty, that it can actually be a resource in which not-for-profits that have engaged in the program, as well as not-for-profits in other communities, can actually use it in regards to ongoing capacity building. So this paragraph here was actually taken from the introduction within the report and highlights the purpose of the report, being that it unpacked the design of the actual program, as well as the capacity building projects that we funded. And the aim of the report is, like I just said, to support ongoing capacity building for those that engaged in the program, communities that have not engaged in IRCF and potentially may not ever have the program within their communities, that they can also benefit from what we learned, and also to potential donors to advocate for the value in programs like this. And so the report really tries to speak to all of those audiences. I'm going to now show you some navigation that we embedded in the report to support how you use it. So just give me a second. And so you can see here the report on FRR's website. It's a chunky report. It's long. There is a lot of information in this report. But I'm also highly aware of limited capacity and time within the important people that are working in these not-for-profit organisations, as well as all our stakeholders. So we tried to ensure that there was some really good accessibility. So you can see here the contents page. So this enables you, if you're interested in theory of change and want to understand more of theory, about our theory of change, you can jump straight to that in the document. I guess to support you to get the information that you need easily. So just know that this contents page is interactive. You can then jump back to the first page if you need, if need be. I always find it really useful if I download the document to use a word find, etc., so that you can actually really activate this as a resource. So the structure of the webinar today, I want to highlight for you within the report what we learnt about organisational capacity building in terms of what we invested in. So to share some of those capacity building insights. Within the IRCF program, those that experienced it understand that in the design, we segment that. We sort of categorise areas of organisational capacity building. In IRCF, that's people, strategy, efficiencies and systems. And I'll speak to a couple of highlights within those areas today. I also wanted to highlight that the resource can be used, I guess, as a way of seeing how we designed for impact, how we designed for change as purpose-driven organisations, working towards the change you want to see is what you do on a day-to-day basis. And basically the report lays out an example of how we did that with IRCF, once again, as a resource that you can use in the future. And then to end, I want to end with how the report tells impact stories, I guess, to get you thinking about how do you tell your stories of impact to mobilise the work that you do. And once again, this is a resource that can, I guess, give you ideas, and I'll share with you at the end as well how we're going to distribute the report and what our plan is and what that looks like. So I'm going to dive right in to strategy. What we learned through the program, and the report is mainly filled with learnings from the evaluation process, which was quite a robust process with IRCF in the pilot communities. And in regards to strategy, we learnt that so this section, it draws, yes, like I said, from the evaluation data, and, you know, it's about the changes in each of the strategic pillars. So just in terms of the capacity building section is what I'm speaking to. And yeah, we share key learnings around the initiatives we supported and any capacity building insights. So in regards to strategy, strategic planning that occurred through the program tended to happen more successfully later in the program. So I guess the point of me sharing this information is to get you thinking about your strategic planning in your organisation. What does that look like? Within the IRCF program, it seemed to happen more successfully later in the program when organisations had some time to mature, to clarify their purpose, potentially deal with any internal issues for the planning to be effective. Where organisations receive funding to engage professional consulting services, it would have been beneficial to provide brokerage support. So that's a learning for FRRR in terms of what brokerage support could have been provided to not-for-profits that needed strategic planning. But then I guess it's worth thinking about in your patch. Do you know of strategic planners who in your pool of expertise as an organisation, are there people you could lean on, or is there some investigation that could be supportive in regards to strategic planning? The 5-year time frame of IRCF allowed organisations in these communities to almost take a more strategic approach because there was investment there, and there could be an initial grant that an organisation worked on. There could be a reflective process, and then they could take the next step in regards to a more strategic approach. And I think this is a really interesting insight in terms of not-for-profits that are stepping out of IRCF or not-for-profits who haven't experienced IRCF, that in the case that there isn't a program such as this, considering, the benefit of a strategy to take small steps, and that when you have that strategy, it enables small grants to be able to serve that small step. So often the conversation is around, yes, there's not enough funds, or there isn't all the funds we need, but if there's a clear plan, it supports in being able to utilise small buckets of funding to take incremental steps. In regards to what contributed to success in regards to strategic planning for organisations and the program, we noticed that not-for-profits that were more sophisticated tended to have plans in place and had improved outcomes from strategic planning. Organisations with clarity of purpose and strong unified governance, so governance will come up a bit in this presentation, could engage more fully in the program generally. So key learnings in regards to strategy and strategic planning. So yes, the local expertise and knowing who you could turn to when you need support with this. We did learn when it worked well for an organisation to use someone local, there were examples where that relationship endured beyond the contract, and consultants then did mentor quite generously, and they saw it as their kind of volunteer contribution to their community. FRRR also learned that in regards to that evolution around needing to broker support for not-for-profits, and FRRR has developed an expertise pool, and you'll receive these slides post this presentation, and there's a link here to the FRRR expertise pool, which also does broker various types of support for not-for-profits in rural, regional and remote communities. So people, significant part of the learning in this program. So investing in current and future leaders. The investment in the people pillar, and in particular the employment of coordinator roles, project officers, grant support officers, and roles to backfill managers and create capacity for them, had a significant impact on several organisations' ability to achieve a range of outcomes. So another way to really use this report is to use it as an advocacy piece, is to use it as evidence in potential applications where you might be seeking support for wages, to give evidence as to why you see it as effective and that has been backed up by a 5-year program, and the outcomes are in the report. So I might just stop sharing and make this a little bit more interactive, and I want to share with you another video. Give me a second. Always good to hear the voices of local people.
The grant funded a coordinator for the Leeton Business Chamber. It's really allowed us to mature as an organisation. I think it really helped with collaborating, like embedding ourselves into the community, being identifiable, who we are, what we do. And I think it really helped us. We found a place in collaborating with industry and not-for-profits, bringing them together and forming relationships through events and other opportunities that we were able to create because we had more people on board.
So in regards to key learnings around the engagement, sorry, just stepping back. So in terms of organisations being able to effectively engage people, contributors to success, improvements in governance. So stepping back again to what I referenced in regards to strategy and knowing your end game. If you do want to engage people, contractors, staff, what are the steps that need to be taken first? So I think this is a great point here in regards to improvements in governance, purpose and organisational systems, policies, IT, HR, finance systems were often required before organisations took on staff and volunteers. So just having a think about that. Development of work plans and instruction manuals supported changes in personnel, or developing a team delivery model, encouraging shared responsibility rather than relying on one person. So in the instance of the Leeton Business Chamber, they did exactly that. They created instruction manuals because they knew that they wanted to be an agile organisation, that there will be times when they wouldn't be able to resource staff, and so they wanted instruction manuals that were developed by that coordinator so that when a volunteer stepped in, they knew exactly what to do, etc. So there was some wonderful agility that they developed through those instruction manuals. Successful engagement of next generation leadership towards meaningful engagement in the NFP sector. So youth is a consistent theme in the IRCF program. So with regard to traineeships, doing that in a relationship-centred way had significant outcomes for young people. So key learnings at the program start through the evaluation process. So these are learnings for FRRR. We've learned that we need to identify organisations where key person risk exists, and we'll go into that further when we step into governance, but as well as identify development and support options where this is present in not-for-profits, because it will strengthen program outcomes and also outcomes for the wider sector. This next point is where we're advocating to future partners, to donors, etc., to show support for local leadership by investing in wages, traineeships, subsidies, sabbaticals, to enable foundational development work that not-for-profits in RRR communities need, operational innovation and partnerships. Understand if systems are also required to enhance these engagements. So once again, the report is there to evidence that that support that you might need in being able to secure funding for wages and human resourcing. We've got a note to self about, IRCF case studies of relationship-centred next-gen trainee journeys, and when commencing program in new communities to share stories about that. And you'll have seen in the beginning of the IRCF video I shared, there's Warinda from Wujagama, and she's speaking. She has been a trainee through the program, and there's a case study within the report that really speaks to what was funded and their journey through the IRCF program and the impact of trainees for that organisation and for the broader community. Investing in people in terms of giving you some fuel, some evidence to support applications, conversations that you have in the future. I think this is a really significant thing to note in terms of what was leveraged through the program, because it was leveraged through grants officers, through the support of coordinators that were funded through the program. Organisations may have been funded for something that then enabled space for them to potentially apply for more funding, to think about revenue streams, etc. So in terms of grants investment in through IRCF was just over 2.7 million to all three communities, Junee, Nambucca and Leeton. The amount that was leveraged by the effort of the not-for-profits due to the funding that was received was over $8.7 million. There's a quote here from Junee Business and Trades. A lot of NFPs are now looking at small grants as a starting point. Awesome. Groups are talking to each other and seeking letters of support. This wasn't happening before. People are getting their heads around how to write grants. People asked JBT to proofread grant applications, which wasn't happening before. Governance. Significant learning in governance throughout the program. Several organisations use the program to focus on improving their governance, refine their purpose, and to invest in policies and systems such as IT and finance. So this is where we touch on key person risk within organisations, and it's important for organisations, small to medium not-for-profits, to have a reflection about this. Typically, within a board, the key person risk sat with the secretary, chair or treasurer. And that's where the brunt of the work that was happening in that organisation is happening with one or two people. And that's where that risk lies. I guess there was an identification of that happening in events-based organisations, venue-based organisations, where there isn't ongoing service delivery. So while they usually had a clear purpose, these organisations had limited or no internal controls. This is not to say their governance was lacking, Rather, it was more relationship-based than systems-based, and therefore vulnerable to changes in key personnel. So the program did fund governance training, specialised governance support. It funded organisations to develop their constitution, ways of supporting other organisations to improve their governance with templates and so forth. So contributors to success. In general, organisations that are delivering programs and services tended to have more functional governance. So for some NFPs, this is likely to be because they have external accountability requirements, such as Koointa Court, so aged care facility, Junior Community Centre being an NDIS provider, Unkia Local Aboriginal Land Council with compliance obligations under the New South Wales Land Rights Act. So I guess when there is that reporting piece, it also does amplify governance, which was a significant learning, and maybe there is something in knowing those organisations in your community, and potentially there is a sharing of support that might come from those organisations who have more robust governance systems. Key learnings. In regards to FRRR and IRCF, there's definitely thinking around delivering a regular program of governance training for NFP leaders through the program to maintain sound decision-making skills as well as community-based leadership, succession and planning. This work doesn't end, it continues for not-for-profits. And I guess there's something in modelling through the program, an ongoing governance training support. Exploring partnerships with councils or large entities that can provide operational support for event or venue-based organisations. Efficiencies, so partnerships. Almost all pilot communities indicated that prior to IRCF, there was little collaboration or partnership between local NFPs. However, that changed quickly. So this was a really early win for the program. The organisations naturally did want to lean into collaboration. So examples of partnership include community liaison officer supporting networking, coordination, and resource sharing through Junior Business and Trades. And there was similar activity through the establishment of Leeton Connect, which is in structure basically like a backbone organisation that's supporting not-for-profits in Leeton. So in terms of partnerships, there's so much benefit in partnering with organisations if there is a shared need to amplify impact, to pool volunteers, to potentially seek collective funding, so forth. Now, in regards to contributing factors of success in regards to partnership, NFPs with capability and skills in forming and nurturing partnerships and that were connected and functional in working with others increased the impact of investment. Positive attributes included a strong, well-connected leader, partnerships being embedded in the delivery of their purpose. So it wasn't an aside. It was in the DNA of their organisations that partnership was essential. And they had great respect for other NFPs. Partnerships being clearly defined was important, and ensuring that there was mutual benefit. A good example of a greater good element, which is also a significant, seemed like a success factor in a partnership, was Riverina Schoolboys Carnival in Junee raised $12,000 to donate to the local hospital, in addition to distributing funds to all the NFPs involved in the community event, which was held at the Junee showground. So it definitely creates that, that working together buy-in. Key learnings around partnership. Accessing and leveraging organisations with partnership experience and existing networks, approaches and systems could support outcomes of collaborative projects. So I guess that, in terms of when we are going to fund an initiative, really looking at the partnership experience of an organisation. So I guess you being able to evidence your partnership experience and effective partnerships, having a think about that in terms of mobilising your future activity. For a reflection for the program and the journey of NFPs, is there a moment in the program where we do need to build partnership capability? That's okay. What does that look like? And for you, if you feel like that's something that you want to lean into, potentially investigating how that can be done. And there are some case studies in the report. Efficiencies. So shared business systems. With this one, I specifically want to focus on local council, and local councils as can be a really effective partner for supporting the impact of not-for-profits in communities. So Leeton Shire Council provides a useful model of how a local council can provide foundational system support for NFPs to build capacity, especially in their establishment phase. So I think from FRRR's perspective, I think it will be important to us when we go into future communities about the council and the council's relationship to the not-for-profit sector. Potentially we need to advocate in regards to the impact that the not-for-profit sector can have in regards to the community. But I think we will also be looking out for, this is a great example with Leeton Shire Council, where for Leeton Council, local government partnership may appear as a support at a governance leadership level. But for example, evidence of councillors volunteering and serving on NFP boards and committees. For Leeton Council, this is seen as fundamental to the DNA of the community and reflecting their respect for volunteers. This extended to the managerial leadership level, with the general manager passionate about NFPs. They have a high risk tolerance for supporting grassroots initiatives with business systems, so providing payroll, insurance, spaces, auspicing staff and template documents, and financial support. So they're supporting through community grants, contracting NFPs to deliver essential services and such as a cleaning contract. So I guess really leaning into what that relationship with local council might look like, how you can step into that conversation to support your relationship with local council is an important one. So in terms of FRRR, we will really reflect on sharing pilot learnings with local government at the program start and fostering ongoing relationships about how their existing systems can be highly supportive for grassroots NFPs and could build confidence in these partnerships. Larger NFPs can also serve in a similar way if they have more robust systems, etc., that smaller NFPs can lean on. Systems, I'm going to stop sharing and jump to a video before we go into this final capacity building area.
The highlight of the IRCF funding was to get us literally into this century. Prior to that funding, we couldn't afford all the IT that we now have. Everything was done on my computer and the Treasurer's computer. We now have that. We have point of sale for our sales. We know exactly what's sold. At the end of each week, we know where we're up to financially there. But on top of that, we've also met with other not-for-profits in town, and we're sharing things, and we're learning more about each other. It really has brought the community together.
So systems. Where organisations receive funding to develop policies and procedures, record-keeping systems, IT platforms and information sharing systems, there was significant improvements in internal efficiency, service delivery, business sustainability and a flow-on impact in the community. So examples in terms of what we funded in regards to systems, in-depth cost modelling, systems, so financial systems, specific aged care technology to improve the management of medication and clinical records, subscriptions for and training in MyOb and Xero. There was a rotated events trailer that is utilised and rented out for fundraising. There was iPad and FPOS terminals. Just to give you some examples. So contributions to success in regards to investment in systems. Partnership grants were used effectively to build foundational systems in individual organisations. So for me, potentially that means small grants could really help with systems upgrades. And so having a think about in terms of that strategic planning, are there some smaller grants that could support systems upgrades for your organisations? System-focused initiatives with potential for local not-for-profits to collaborate can lead to uplift across a number of organisations. Local facilitators and funded liaison officers or coordinators are often well positioned to identify shared needs to connect organisations that could benefit. So that does make me think of digital systems. There were some digital systems that profiled multiple organisations, digital hubs created in communities. Identifying accessible storage and the development of policies and procedures for shared resources supported sustainable outcomes. So once again, these complementary systems were often supported by local facilitators. So, there is a lot of shared things that need to be stored, etc. And so I think a learning through IRCF and I think potentially for not-for-profits was that you might apply for something, but how that will be maintained, shared, stored, etc., is also something that needs to be developed. In the process of applying for whatever it is. Key learnings. So for us, it's profiling examples of effective systems-focused initiatives funded through the program. And offering financial literacy training at the start of the program will benefit many NFPs. So I guess that's a reflection for all the organisations on the call in terms of would that be supportive and what might that look like, and having conversations at a board level to support that. This would likely increase the confidence of key people to ask critical questions at organisational and contractor level and raise awareness of supportive systems. So I'm just going to pause there, just in terms of I have been speaking. Thank you for a while now, so thanks for engaging and listening. But I'm really curious just to pause us there to ask you all on the call in terms of those insights in terms of capacity building initiatives for organisations. And then being documented in the report. What does feel useful? Maybe there's something that you're already doing that you'd like to share. I'm really curious about how these are sitting with you, and if they do feel useful in terms of your ongoing capacity building thinking, or if there's any questions. Yeah, Neil, go.
I'm just seeing Nicholas, one of my colleagues there, and one of the things that continues to surprise and delight me is that Nicholas has picked up he was originally one of the coordinators that was funded. Nicholas is now, out of the goodnesses of his heart, as far as I'm aware, still continuing to operate in that space, and it wouldn't be a week or maybe even less time than that go by when I get an email from Nicholas alerting me to further funding opportunities, what other groups are doing. So just in terms of the connectedness between the local groups, we're benefiting greatly from Nicholas's initial funded position, and now just the goodness of his heart. So that's just something that I'm really impressed with.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's a great point, Neil, in terms of, that investment in terms of capability building and, yes, connecting people to the not-for-profit sector and that there is similar to the leverage, that then there's a multiplier effect. There's momentum that initiates off that impact, and that's a fantastic example, and one that I'd encourage is definitely shared in Juni, if there are collaborative, initiatives that you're all a part of, yeah. Any other reflections? I should have a look at the chat. So I wanted to, I guess, raise that awareness that the impact report really does, it shares the story of how FRRR and VFFF designed IRCF as a model of support to build strong, collaborative, resilient, sustainable RRR communities by providing local NFPs flexible support and funding that allows them to advocate effectively. So what's shared in the report is the partnership motivations. So I guess in terms of really understanding that philanthropic motivation as well, which I know a lot of not-for-profits have been curious about through the program. So it really does unpack the motivations as to why FRRR and VFFF wanted to do this work in the first place, their previous experience, so their state of readiness that informed this work and the delivery of the program, the experts that contributed to the design. So once again, it is that kind of, even at that level, there was expertise that was being fed into the process. And I feel like that happens at so many multiple levels, small grassroots organisation and the input of expertise, as well as, this level of partnership developing programs like this. There was a theory of change that was developed, and of course the model, which is all the activity and the initiatives that were included in the model. Considering it was a pilot program, there was also a very robust evaluation process that was embedded from the start, so that we ensured that we were learning along the way. And that is all detailed in the report, I guess, to support how you design your impact processes in what you do. I did want to highlight a couple of, in terms of the model, so that original video did speak to the model being facilitators, collective road mapping, there was granting, etc. They were all features of the model. Community facilitators. I just want to highlight a couple of model features to plant a seed in regards to, do these features have to sit within a program that is delivered, or are there ways, if there was significant benefit, for communities to embed them in their sector post-program, or if the program isn't rolling out in their communities? So there was definitely significant learning around the community facilitator role that was contracted by FRRR, and their role to support tailored place-based outcomes was in enhancing program understanding and communication between NFPs. So they were really a connector, and connecting with FRRR as well, and other opportunities to share with not-for-profits. They accelerated aligned partnerships between NFPs. Neil, you spoke to that before as well, in terms of the role that Nicholas was also doing within that community liaison role. So there is this need for connective tissue within not-for-profit sectors. They connected not-for-profits to local businesses, potentially to consultants and brokerage, etc., in regards to expertise. They shared relevant information, resources around grant opportunities. They support problem-solving conversations and give guidance on approaches in areas such as fundraising, business planning, grant writing, funding models, etc. In some communities, they can be an intermediary between Indigenous and non-Indigenous organisations. So what we learned about community facilitators is that it was a real benefit to communities to have that connector, neutral connector role. with the right skills being most important, and present, based in community, but definitely with the right skills were significant, as well as culturally competent to support conversations that increase inclusion in that community. Structured evaluation. So in terms of ongoing in your organisation, what does evaluation look like? Because through the program, you clearly told us it was of value and highly beneficial. So I'm sure in grassroots, not-for-profits, where there's limited capacity, taking a moment to reflect definitely goes to the bottom of the list. And so a great part of this program is it kind of made not-for-profits accountable to actually show up and reflect. And what we heard were things like the evaluation process made us feel quite positive and made us see things we can do. The evaluation makes us think about what we are doing and improves how we look at how we should be running the place. So really it's that kind of ongoing strategic evolution process. So if you need support in regards to developing evaluation systems, there's evidence in the report to back that up if you're applying for funding for that, or if you're a staff member that wants to sort of advocate to your board about the effectiveness of embedding a system like that. All organisations that engaged in the program received a certificate of participation in regards to their involvement in the IRCF evaluation, which was above and beyond any usual grant requirements. So this was 6 monthly community workshops, interviews, self-assessment. You can use that as evidence. Also within within the report, there is a link, and it's also within this document, the self-assessment tool. So not-for-profits used a self-assessment tool it was like a checklist in regards to all the pillars, people, systems, strategies, efficiencies, and they were able to kind of reflect on their different capacity building, where they were at in regards to those different pillars. It asks specific questions so they could do that reflection. That tool is a resource that not-for-profits can now use to continue their ongoing reflective process. And that's is definitely part of this slide deck, and it's in the report as well. But the framework that, in terms of the model, like what the evaluation was, is also in the appendix of the report. So you can link to, we were engaged in IRCF, etc., and this was the model of evaluation that they undertook with these outcomes, so forth. Advocacy and confidence. So you heard our theory of change was really about flexible support for not-for-profits so that they could effectively advocate for themselves. And I wanted to highlight this because our learning was that as part of the program, we really need to continue to facilitate opportunities to support leaders to participate and build awareness of advocacy benefits. And often that means leaving the patch that they're currently in, going outside, building new ideas, connecting to other not-for-profits, etc., and other people that are working in a similar space to them, so that they can actually see that they're part of a much larger, I guess, impact sector. So, for example, FRRR supported community groups to attend Change Fest. These links are all in the slide deck. The Social Impact for the Regions Conference, where they had the opportunity to speak about their work. It's a great quote here. The social impact in the Regions Conference helped me to see the big picture. This turbocharged my advocacy efforts through hearing leadership experiences that have had profound impacts for communities. I realised the impact I could have through my own leadership. Shortly after the conference, we had the Senate inquiry into the CommBank closure in June, and I could see the impact that decision would have on my community, and that supported Jackie Stevens to be able to step up in terms of that Senate inquiry and understand the efficacy she could have in that space. So I think what I've also heard through the program is often staff, could see a PD opportunity and they need support to advocate to boards in terms of that space and that time. And there's evidence in the report in regards to the benefit of that effort and that investment. Once again, small grants can potentially support PD opportunities, and there's significant benefit in that. To wrap up, I can see I've got a minute here. Impact storytelling. Basically, the report really speaks, it just shares a whole lot of stories around impact. How do you tell your stories of impact? And I feel like the report can potentially give you ideas how you might choose to tell your stories, particularly with the case studies. The case studies show what was inputted, the grant initiatives, etc. They show the outcome to that organisation, and they show the impact on the broader community. So there's a real kind of a clear process of change that we're telling the story about. The impact report unpacks the journey of every community. Because of evaluation, we've got reflections from the start of the program and all the way along, once again, helping us tell the entire journey of change story. And finally, this is how we're going to share the story. It's been shared, of course, as part of our own acquittal with our partners, VFFF, and because as such an important piece of work, it was presented by our CEO to the VFFF board. There'll be media releases that will target local communities so we can continue to celebrate the not-for-profits and the incredible work and their contributions they made to this program and capacity building in RRR communities. It will be pitched nationally, and we'll potentially use specific stories like that leverage. You know, of course, that's a quick piece of fact that shows some significant gains. There's this community webinar, of course, follow-up articles with the IRCF newsletters and FRRR online newsletters. If you are not subscribed to the IRCF newsletter, which is specific to capacity building, please put a comment in the chat and we can add you to that subscription list. Thought leadership articles, so really specific to capacity building and trying to connect to other people working in this space, I guess, because it then accelerates FRRR's leadership in this space and wanting to be part of important conversations. So are there important conversations that your organisations want to be part of? What content are you putting out there so that I guess the broader community can see that you're thinking in this space? There'll be a donor partner event. There will be a pitch article for Philanthropy Australia because, of course, FRRR wants this work to continue. And so where do other donors hang out, etc.? Philanthropy Australia, it'd be fantastic for us to be able to share this story there. And we will drip feed video content via FRRR through social media, Facebook and LinkedIn. And there's a image there of one of our recent posts on stock sharing. So that distribution plan started in September and it will go all the way through until 2025. So I can see a couple of people have joined and potentially there's been some confusion around time. So I can touch base with those people that have joined now, but this has definitely been recorded in the case that people thought it started now rather than an hour ago. So we've saved you an hour in your day and you can listen to this at another point. But before I jump off, if anyone wants to hang around for a couple of minutes, if you've got any questions, any reflections that you want to share, like I said at the beginning, the purpose is that this report is not a dusty document that sits on the shelf, but it's a resource. It's a resource in regards to capacity building insights, in regards to designing for change in your communities, and in regards to how you tell your important impact stories, because you're all doing amazing work. And the more we can share those stories and amplify that, the better. Good on you, Mia.
Lisa has her hand up.
Ah, awesome. Lisa. You've got to unmute yourself, Lisa, if...
Sorry, I didn't realise I had my hand up. I was just doing a big clap.
Awesome.
I meant to do a big clap. That was fantastic and congratulations to everyone involved. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Nancy.
Pleasure, Kathy.
Thanks so much. That was an awesome presentation. What an amazing program. Hi, Neil. How are you going?
G'day, Kate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. So congratulations. Fantastic program. I support Gina Shire and Leeton Shire in my current role, so I'm just so excited to hear about this and can't wait to read the report. Well done.
Fantastic. Kate, reach out if you want to unpack it anymore.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye. So those that need to jump off, I've got a message here. Let me see. Thank you, Joe. Do as you need. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Nancy. Been a lovely relationship. Thank you.
Awesome, Neil. Likewise.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for the presentation.
Bobby.
Did not anticipate seeing myself. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, you saw it. Fantastic. Great. Bobby was profiled in that video around Leeton Business Chamber. Yeah.
Thanks. Great presentation. We'll look at the report more in depth. Thank you.
Yeah, reach out, Bobby. If you
Thanks. Look, really love being a part of the program. Learn a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bobby.